Good evening, good selection Sunday, and I guess it would be good afternoon, late afternoon if you're on the West Coast. Yes. But this is SB Nation's Selection Sunday Live, brought to you by Applebee's 2 for $20 menu. And do check out your local Applebee's because price and participation, Nick, it may vary.
It may vary.
It may vary. This is Nick Fasulo. We've got coaches, we've got team experts and writers, we've got Studio B with Roger, Sherman, and Ryan Nanny doing all sorts of fun things. If you're on Facebook, if you happen to be on Facebook Live on your phones, your mobile devices, just even on your, whatever you're on, check them out. They're having some fun and answering all sorts of questions, just smart and weird. But we are going to start going over this bracket. But first, tell me, when you saw what the selection committee decided, who they had in, where they had those teams, who they left out, why they were left out. What is the big takeaway, sort of the immediate takeaway for you?
I can't believe that Syracuse is in. I can't believe that Tulsa's in.
Yeah.
Monmouth being out. I think it basically just says that, like, hey, dude, if you're not in a major conference, the chances of you making the tournament as an at-large is just slim. And that's the way it's going to be no matter what the numbers tell you. And I actually think that Joe Castiglione, who's a tournament chair, confirmed that on TV a few minutes ago as to why Monmouth was not in. People on Twitter are going, ballistic based on the fact that Syracuse, I think, is the lowest rated RPI team ever to make the tournament at 69. And they lost to St. John's. Did you know how bad St. John's was this year?
They were not the best.
Yeah. I don't know their record, but it doesn't matter. They were terrible.
Queens' college basketball program, for what that's worth.
Yeah.
St. John's. So what does that mean for the level of play in the tournament? That we don't have these really talented, so it's not just Monmouth, it's Valpo, it's San Diego State. There are a number of these high-level teams with pretty decent to good resumes that didn't make it in. What does that mean for at least the first, Thursday through Sunday?
Yeah, two things. I think it's very easy and it's kind of fun, and people naturally say, or they want to, talk about the teams that didn't get in, the teams that just got in, and how unfair that is. Right. None of those teams are going to win the national championship. Probably none of those teams are going to make the Final Four anyway. Right. It's not really going to matter in the next 2 weeks. It just makes for good fodder at this moment. The teams at the top were seeded correctly, I felt.
Interesting.
And I also feel like, to your point, though, about the fact that a lot of the mid-major, lower-level conferences, their top teams didn't win. So the teams that won the regular season did not win the postseason. It does make it a little bit more difficult to kind of find that upset-minded team that's out there, because I wanted to come in talking about Valpo, talking about maybe even Oakland if it was that team in the horizon, and other teams as well that are not there. And now we get teams that, I don't want to speak ill of them, speak badly, but we know less about them. And now it's like this whole season of parity, saying anyone can beat anyone. Right. That may not be true going into the tournament, which is really interesting based on what the narrative has been all year.
To you, though, is there a team at that mid-major level? And I think it's sort of unfair to put sort of an unfair superlative or whatever with mid-major, because there's just good basketball teams all over. Is there a team this year, either in or out of the tournament, that actually is good enough to get to, let's say, the Elite Eight, not even Final Four, to make that sort of run that we've seen in years past?
They're not even in the tournament, so that stinks. But I really, really liked Valparaiso based on their metrics, who they played, how they played. Right. They brought everyone back from last year, and now they're not even in the tournament. I really thought that they could have made a run based on the fact that they played slow and they played really good defense, and that usually is how teams beat the larger seeded teams. Right. So that doesn't happen. I really don't see one. Now, one will probably emerge. There's always a Cinderella. I like teams like Chattanooga a little bit. I like what I've seen out of Arkansas Little Rock, but they kind of got a bad matchup, I think. So with Purdue, it depends, but at the same time, someone is out there. I think it's kind of our job to figure it out over the next hour or so when we're
There is a bit of a groundswell for the Panthers of Northern Iowa as well, after what they were able to do a little bit ago in the tournament. But yeah, I think you're right. Even though Wichita State is in the tournament, and this is going to sound weird and backwards, it doesn't feel like there's a Wichita State in this year's tournament.
But then that's the whole point of the tournament, is to watch the games, let them play out, and then prove everyone wrong.
Do you have deep sleepers, though?
I do like Northern Iowa because they have beat big teams and they have a great point guard, and that always matters in the tournament. West Washburn
and Monmouth.
So yeah, you get it. But yes, if I had to pick one right now, I'd say Northern Iowa. I think that they have the makeup, the backcourt, and they have what they've done in the regular season shows that they can beat big teams.
Exactly. All right, we are now joined by Ricky O'Donnell, of course, SB Nation's college basketball editor. Ricky, welcome, and what are your top-of-the-line thoughts now that you've seen this field all printed out?
I think the first thing that jumps out is Michigan State and Virginia ending up in the same region again. That's just a nightmare for Virginia fans after Michigan State knocked them out in the tournament the last 2 years. I was really high on this Virginia team coming into Selection Sunday, but I don't know, to this point, it looks like Michigan State, to me, is the strongest team in the field, and that's just a really tough matchup for Virginia and a heartbreak for them once again.
All right, one of the surprises, now that you do mention Michigan State, obviously some people surprised that Michigan State was not a number 1 seed, but that's a dramatic pause there, Oregon Ducks are sort of the surprise 1 seed. What was your reaction to seeing Dana Altman's squad put atop their region?
Yeah, I definitely think they're worth it after winning the Pac-12 regular season and the conference tournament. But Oregon's going to have a tough matchup in the second round if they draw St. Joe's. St. Joe's looked really good today in the A-10 final. I think they have 2 versatile forwards there, led by DeAndre Bremby, who could give Oregon some trouble. It sort of matches Oregon in terms of style of play there, so I think that could be a really tough matchup. But you got to like Oregon. I think they get it done on both ends of the floor. They've got some shooters. Tyler Dorsey's been really impressive as a freshman point guard. And, that's a team that can match talent with any team in the country this year.
When you look at the top seeds, where's the number cutoff of teams that you feel like have a reasonable shot to win the national championship? Is it the 1 through 3s, 1 through 5s, only 1s and 2s? Because everybody talks about being wide open. What is the grouping that you see as potential challengers for the trophy?
Yeah, I think there's some interesting 3 seeds this year. West Virginia certainly had a ton of really impressive victories in the Big 12 regular season. That's a team with their full-court press style that can give a lot of different squads some trouble. I think Miami's got size and experience. Sheldon McClellan is one of the better senior guards in the country there. So I do think the 3 seeds are pretty tough, and, I'm sure that there's going to be a team that makes a run. I wouldn't be surprised if it's someone like Arizona, who wasn't at full strength for most of the year in the Pac-12. Just years and years of quality recruiting by Sean Miller there. They could cause Villanova some trouble, I think, potentially in the Sweet 16 if they're able to, get past Miami. So it's tough to really think of a cutoff number like that, but I definitely think there's a group of teams that could make it deep this year.
Ricky, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure you have a ton of work to do, and everybody watching, be sure to check out SB Nation's college basketball and NCAA tournament coverage. It is second to none.
Ricky's the best.
He is the best. Nick, let's get into this East region.
All right.
So a region near and dear to your heart.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, you have Xavier.
I'm from the East, too.
A proud Xavier alum. You're from the East. These are undeniable facts. Okay, so looking at this region, as you see in front of you, you have North Carolina, a strong finish to the season, led by Marcus Page and Bryce Johnson. Do you see any surprises in this region? If we pencil in North Carolina, if we pencil in Xavier early, if we pencil West Virginia early, we pencil Kentucky in early, any surprises, or was I wrong in any of my penciling?
So I think this is the toughest bracket. I think top to bottom, there's the most talent and depth across the board. One thing that I find really interesting all season, what Ricky said, is West Virginia.
Yeah.
You can't prepare for West Virginia. You just can't prepare for that. I don't know how you take your 12th man lineup, your scout team, and say, go pretend to be West Virginia. Stephen F. Austin has that task that they have to deal with right now. And that's not, you cannot replicate that. And I think that they are a better offensive team than many people make them out to be.
Well, see, the last time people saw them in the tournament, offensively, West Virginia, disappointing.
That's right. Kentucky. They made that proclamation. The guy hid in the bathroom for a little bit. He was really embarrassed.
Yeah,
that was good.
So, but you think they are improved this season?
I think
they have turned a corner.
This is hard for me to say. I was always saying all season, I don't want to play West Virginia. Being a Xavier grad, they got to play West Virginia if they're going to advance to the Elite Eight, and I don't know if that's going to happen.
Okay, fair enough. Anywhere else in the East region? I mean, we're going to get into Xavier here momentarily. Do you feel good about Xavier at the moment?
I do. I mean, they lost a tough game to Seton Hall a few nights ago, but then Seton Hall went out and beat Villanova to win the Big East. So I think they proved that they're one of the top teams in the country right now. One thing I got to quickly say, Indiana, Kentucky. Big rivalry. They don't like to play. They don't play each other anymore.
Right.
I don't know whose fault it was. It's he said, she said as to why. But now the NCAA may have forced their hand and made them play in a second, third, or whatever you want to call it, round of the tournament. That's good stuff.
Tom Crane, John Calipari, same court. Yes.
I love it.
All right, we are now joined by, who are we joined by? Oh, Joel Dobney, of course, from our excellent Xavier site, Banners on the Parkway. We are talking Xavier basketball. What was your reaction, Joel, when you saw the seeding and you saw the potential path and region?
Well, the first thought looking at it was I look at Weber State, and the one thing that comes to mind is Harold the Show Arsenault knocking off North Carolina in '99. So I got chills there. But you look at a potential path out of that first weekend, it's going to come down to if Xavier can impose their style of play on the winner of the Wisconsin-Pittsburgh game. Those are a couple teams that like to play it slow, drag the game into the mud, and Xavier likes to move the ball up and down pretty quickly. So If X can make Wisconsin or Pitt speed up and play their game, I like the way that matches up for X to move on to the Sweet 16.
What about if they do get to the Sweet 16? Hopefully they will, Joel. And what do you think about the potential matchup with West Virginia? Does that worry you at all, or do you think that they'd be fine against that press?
Oh, that's a dream matchup. You talk to a Xavier fan, and if they've got a chance to beat Bob Huggins on national TV, we'll run the risk with that press. Obviously, West Virginia wants to put pressure on the basketball, and it's going to come down to that combination of Miles Davis and Edmund Sumner taking care of it. Sumner's a one-man press break. If he gets the ball with a head of steam, he'll just run right through a crowd. West Virginia will put you on the line more than just about any team in the nation. And Xavier did really well in conference play, hit about 3/4 of their free throws. So, again, it's a style of play thing. If Xavier gets through that first line, I think they'll destroy West Virginia behind the press. But if Sumner or Davis gets sped up and we turn live ball turnovers into layups for West Virginia, talk about a horrible way for a Xavier season to end would be seeing Bob Huggins' smiling face on the television.
Joel, thank you very much for joining us, and good luck to your Musketeers.
Thanks, Joel.
Where are you worried about Xavier at this moment?
So, I just keep going back to that press. I think right now they're not the most athletic team in the country.
Okay.
They definitely struggle against teams that move the ball a little bit faster. And if you look at their losses this year, they fall behind big early, and then it's too big of a hole to come back from. They sometimes let mistakes compound each other.
Right.
Edmund Sumner's great. Everyone that isn't a Xavier fan absolutely loves him because they see him on SportsCenter a lot. He's had a lot of highlight plays. He's a good point guard, but he gets a little out of control sometimes. And so what I've noticed in their games this year is you can kind of tell what you're going to get from him within the first few minutes of the game. And to Joel's point, if they do play West Virginia, again, we're probably looking way too far ahead. Something's going to happen. But you'll know in the first few minutes how he's going to handle that press. Is he going to, like you said, be a one-man press break, or is he going to utilize Miles Davis or Trayvon Blewett to help him break that press, or is he just going to do it himself? We don't quite know yet, but you'll know very quickly once that game starts if it gets to that point. Should
also mention there are a couple of teams here in the East, lower-seeded teams, Providence and Chattanooga. A lot to be scared of both of these teams. And we'll get into it a little more in a second, because we are joined right now by Coach Matt McCall of the Chattanooga Mocs, the 29-win Chattanooga Mocs.
Don't mess that up.
How does that sound? 29-win Mocs.
No, you know what? It's been a terrific season, a terrific year, and got a great group that's completely selfless. Always puts the team first, and that's the biggest thing. When you get a group of guys, a group of talented individuals that are willing to do that, you got an opportunity to do something special. And that's where we're at right now. And obviously we're excited to continue to play next week against one of the most historic programs in college basketball history, with a terrific coach and a terrific team, and we're excited about the opportunity.
Coach, how do you feel about the Mocs right now as you are constituted, of course, without Casey Jones, but certainly finishing the season very strongly? How do you grade how the team is executing right now? What do you really like about what your team is doing on the court?
Well, I think I continue to like their unselfishness. They play for each other. You know, all the adversity that's been faced this year, even going back to losing Casey right before the Dayton game, these guys didn't flinch. And they've handled their business and handled everyone that's been right in front of them. And, obviously we're able to win the regular season in the Southern Conference Tournament to put us in this position right now that we're in to enter the NCAA Tournament and, take on a very good Indiana team.
What do you know about this Indiana team, if anything, at the moment?
Well, obviously, got the utmost respect for Coach Crean and the job that he's done there. They won the Big Ten. That's not an easy feat with the teams that were in that league this year. Obviously, with Michigan State, one of the best teams in the country, to do that is impressive. Obviously they got one of the best point guards in the country in Yogi Ferrell. Got a terrific wing player in Troy Williams that we recruited while I was at Florida a little bit. Just from top to bottom, just a really good team. And you don't win the Big Ten and not have a tremendous season and a really talented team. So, we'll start to watch some film here tonight and start to get prepared for these guys.
Is there anything just off the top of your head that this week's practice is going to focus on? Something that you would just like to turn the knob up a little on?
Well, I think that, playing against an Indiana team, playing against a Tom Crean team, you're going to have to, you're going to really have to defend ball screens well. So I think our pick and roll coverage in practice the next couple of days is going to be huge. But obviously we need to watch some film here. We need to dissect some film and see exactly what their tendencies are. And what they're really, really good at and their personnel, and obviously, so we'll be able to key in on some things in practice tomorrow from breaking down some tape tonight.
Great. Coach Matt McCall from, the SoCon champs, Chattanooga Mocs. Thank you very much for your time and good luck.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. A Billy Donovan assistant, a former Billy Donovan assistant.
So you can't mess with him.
You do not mess with that sort of lineage in March. Do you like Indiana at this point? They have this weird thing where Indiana fans, Hoosier fans, have this very, let's politely call it rocky relationship with Tom Crean.
They do.
But they really sort of break through this season. They have some real nice wins along the way. They don't finish the year perhaps in the tournament, the conference tournament, as they would have liked to. But are you high on the Hoosiers at all?
I guess. I mean, I hated them coming.
That'll be in their promo video for next year.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, take that one down, Mr. SID. But they were terrible at the start of the season.
Yeah.
They could not play any defense. And it was kind of, it was frightening because it got to the point where it's like, there's no way Crean can keep his job this year based on how this is trending. James Blackman gets hurt. Really solid sophomore shooter. Good player. McDonald's All-American. And then when he gets injured, the floor just kind of opened up. It made it a little bit easier for them to score. And I think, and Ricky O'Donnell, our boy, wrote a good article on this, is that, Blackman's a good player, but he didn't pass the ball a lot. He's kind of a ball hog. And they had other guys on their bench that can come off the bench and score and shoot. And it kind of let Yogi Ferrell roam a little bit better.
Right.
So it didn't really disrupt their offense, and they somehow also became a better defensive team. I think that kind of happens is just kind of like mentally saying, I need to focus more on being a better defender. But I think outside of that, just the fact that Blackman kind of helps them, keeps their spacing.
Right.
You got some younger guys on the team, get some more minutes, a good balanced team. Troy Williams, I think, is an NBA player.
Right.
Really solid player. I like what this team is doing right now. Don't worry about the fact they lost the Big Ten tournament. That's totally fine.
Sure.
But what they're doing now shows that they're a real team, and Crean has a job for another season until this happens all over again?
All right. At this point, we are going to go to Studio B for Ryan Nanny and Roger Sherman answering any and all of your questions on our Facebook live feed. Roger and Ryan, how you guys doing?
We're doing good. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter. We're talking to you guys now. This is the question we're getting asked about. A lot of people are obviously upset about the bubble of this bracket. In particular, we're talking about Tulsa, Vandy, and Michigan getting in over Syracuse. Some teams. Yeah, Syracuse we're done with. But St. Bonaventure, a team that people are mad didn't get in. I think South Carolina has a really good case to be pissed at the committee for what happened to them, especially having beaten Tulsa and Vanderbilt head-to-head. But I am curious if you guys think that we're overreacting and that the case just wasn't there for the Monmouth, the St. Bonaventure, the bubble teams that we want to love because they're sort of the smaller, scrappier schools. Did the committee, how wrong did the committee get this? Should we be this mad or just kind of this mad?
Whatever the middle of that was, I don't know. I think, again, Monmouth was a great story. They got a really cool bench. They like to dance, and it'd be fun for the tournament. But here's the thing. They beat UCLA, Georgetown, USC, and Notre Dame. That's great. Those are good programs, especially UCLA and Georgetown. If you look at Ken Pom, UCLA is basically Georgia Tech and BYU this year. Whatever.
So mean.
Georgetown is basically JMU, James Madison. Shout out to the Dukes. Love the Dukes. Not a good basketball team, though. So are those wins really that powerful? I guess not. And I kind of tend to agree with the committee. But at the same time, like I was saying earlier, if you take, these teams aren't going to matter in a few weeks anyway.
Okay.
There's a little bit of money that they're losing. They don't get to go to the tournament and get some of that payout. I do think it is absolutely ludicrous that Syracuse and Tulsa are in the tournament, though. I forgot about those two teams. I didn't even consider them when I was doing research for this very show. I had to make sure I get everything right.
Right.
They just don't belong. And I don't know what else to say. Those two teams do not belong. I do think you can give a stronger case to Monmouth because those wins actually mattered. Syracuse, yes, had some good wins. But at the same time, Syracuse doesn't have to play those sub-200 RPI teams. So they have less chances.
Everybody's just going to have bad nights no matter who you're playing.
Monmouth, what Wichita State did a few years ago is unbelievable that they went undefeated. I don't care what conference you're in. Monmouth, as good as they could or could not be, they're probably not going to go undefeated in their league, and it's a weak league in general. So you're going to lose a game, then it looks terrible on your resume.
All right, Ryan and Roger, what else are the people, and that's capital T, capital P, talking about as it relates to this recently released bracket?
Dan, you know that I don't throw anybody under the bus, but I do want to say we have one Facebook commenter, first name Bruce, last name I am withholding.
Okay.
He's happy because both of his teams got in, UConn and Miami. And what kind of person is a UConn and a Miami fan? I can't really wrap my head around that.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, he's got to be in real estate, right?
South Florida snowbird real estate.
Yeah,
that actually
easily.
makes perfect sense. So, yeah, we're going to keep monitoring the social feeds here. Come find us on Facebook, on Twitter. Come to Roger's house and leave him a note. And we're going to keep answering questions.
Roger has not cleaned up his house. I'm shocked. I, for one, am shocked by this. Do not go to Roger's house. Let's get into the South. The South region, we have the number 1 overall seed, Kansas, who you are very defensively. You feel great about them.
I do, yeah. I mean, they don't do, nothing really sticks out as like, wow, they're absolutely incredible at this specific, particular, whatever I'm trying to say, part of the game, but they don't really do anything wrong.
Right.
Bill Self is a fantastic coach. They have senior leadership. They have, so Jamari Traylor,
yes.
Perry Ellis, and Landon Lucas. No one talks about Traylor and Lucas. They are really important cogs in this team. Ellis scores. He's the guy that everyone knows about, everyone makes jokes about.
Yes.
Because he's been there since 1972, whatever. Good for him. He started a lot of games.
Yeah.
But they got bigs that play really good D and come up with those key baskets. Graham and Mason in their backcourt, not highly recruited guys. They're at one of the top programs in the country, and they can make that team go. I have a hard time trusting Kansas a lot of times in the tournament. I trust them this year. I'm not saying they're going to win it all, but they are the top overall seed in the tournament, I believe, and rightfully so. They've earned it, and I think they're that quality team based on the rest of the field.
All right, speaking of trust issues, Villanova is in this region. I have trust issues with the Wildcats, and we're going to talk a little bit more about them in a minute, but how do you feel about the Wildcats at the moment?
I trust them more this year because they have better playmakers on the wings. Chris Jenkins, Big Smooth,
yes,
and Mr. Josh Hart. They can get to the basket. The problem with Villanova is sometimes they don't want to get to the basket. They're really three-point reliant.
Right.
As long as they actually run the offense and understand where their best what their best players can do on the court, they're going to be in good shape this year. I promise you, they're going to make it to at least the Sweet 16. Iowa and Temple do not scare me whatsoever.
Okay, we are now joined by Chris Lane of VU Hoops, of course, on the SB Nation community, talking about Villanova. Do you agree, Chris, with Nick's assessment that they just need to know who they are and they're a Sweet 16 team at the very least?
Yeah, I do. I think that this year they've got a much better team mantra, which focuses on defense rather than offense. They're a little less susceptible to losing games when they're not firing from long range. And definitely agree about Jenkins and Hart. I think they're both playing their best basketball at this time of year. And having up more than one score, which is something they didn't have always last year, is a big plus for them.
All right, and when you look at this region, is there a team that immediately jumps out to you as perhaps a matchup advantage, a matchup nightmare? How do you think they stack up in the way that they're built against the South?
Yeah, I think, first game is they should definitely be favored, and I think what you guys were talking about earlier, this is one of those teams in UNC Asheville that was not one of the best teams in their conference and rolled off a couple of wins in the end to get in, so they should be good there. And then Iowa and Temple, Villanova has already beaten Temple on the road by 16 this year. I don't think they'll be worried about them. Iowa's supremely talented and, was obviously one of the best teams in the country earlier in the year, but they're unraveling. So I do like their path to the Sweet 16. They just need to go out and get it done. And if they can do that, I think it's house money for them. All the expectations will be off of them. They can go out there and just play loose and relaxed and hopefully get a couple more wins and, try to get by Kansas, get back to the Final Four.
What type of team scares you as a Villanova fan?
I think anybody who's got a very athletic guard that can really cause some damage. They did a good job on Chris Dunn this year, but Isaiah Whitehead, who is playing better than just about anyone in the country right now, tore them to pieces on Saturday night. So, in the past, it's been that athletic guard that can get by the first man, break down their defense, and find the open guy. And I think somebody like Kansas with Frank Mason and Wayne Selden, those are the types of teams that I think will scare us down the road. But that's a long way off. They need to win their first games and get out of that first weekend just to, prove all the doubters wrong.
Chris, thank you very much for joining us, and good luck to the Wildcats along the way. All right, this is what I want to get into right now, because we mentioned Yogi Ferrell. We're talking about the experienced wings of Villanova. Who to you, when you look up and down, let's go just the South at the moment, and let's also talk East, because we've already mentioned the East. Who are the stars? Who are the players in the South and the East as you look down at various teams? We have not talked about Maryland yet, a couple of potential stars there. Miami, Arizona. Who to you, with 3.5 minutes left, is like, oh, they're okay because they have blank?
Yeah. Villanova, Chris Jenkins, doesn't get enough attention, had a great Big East tournament. It felt like whenever I watched him play, he was hitting shots, although I never really heard a lot of people talk about him, on the blogs and Twitter and stuff like that. But I really like his game, and he really helps them, again, adds that next dimension that they didn't really have last year. Sheldon McClellan on Miami, stud.
Yes.
Can play, athletic, decent shooter, can get to the rim, can pretty much do it all from a perimeter guard kind of guy that you want on your team. Kind of helps complement Angel Rodriguez, who is more of a distributor but will also get to the rim. I think he's a guy, those two guys I can put the ball in their hands, if it's close in the last few minutes.
Right.
Maryland, Milo Trimble, he was a star.
He was.
I guess he's still a star.
Could be it once again, yeah.
I want him to be a star because as Maryland goes, he goes. Or
they
go as Maryland goes.
Yes.
Yeah, and so they need him to be what we thought he was and how he was playing at the beginning of the season.
Right.
It just hasn't really worked out for them. They're down right now. They were the national championship contender coming into the season.
Yeah, they were a top 3 team coming in.
Now they're a 5 seed going to Spokane. That just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel.
What is the best version of Maryland? What do they look like? How can they recapture what was justifiably a good amount of hype in November?
Run pick and rolls with Melo Trimble. Let him get to the rim. Diamond Stone is not a really good offensive player, but somehow he's a great rebounder and picks up other people's trash and puts it in.
Right.
You got to get to the rim and let them get second chance shots. I've always felt like if they just ran pick and pops with Jake Layman, if he was a little bit tougher, put Rashid Suleiman on the other team's best defender, let him say you don't have to score 20 points tonight. Just go play great defense, which he did against Denzel Valentine yesterday in Michigan State. He can do that. Let him be the shutdown defender and let Stone, Layman, and of course Mr. Trimble get involved on offense and then have Suleiman hit a couple shots here and there. I think that's the best version of Maryland.
All right. How angry will Fran McCaffrey get?
Well, I mean, they were up here and now they're down there.
It's not good.
He's ticked. But I mean, rightfully so. I mean, this Iowa team for the last 4 or 5 years, you always hear about them at points in the season, and then when it comes tourney time, they're not there. They're not what we thought they were going to be based on how we perceived them in December and January. It's the same sort of story with them this season, and it's too bad. Utah's a great player. People were talking about him as player of the year in the nation, let alone the Big Ten. And right now they're a 7 seed. And the 7-10 games, people don't even watch 7-10 games.
No, they do not.
They're usually pretty boring.
A play-in game that's typically boring. We have Vandy and Wichita State. Wichita State, an unbelievable defensive team, and I guess technically they play offense. What is this team? What is the ceiling? I mean, they could have Arizona in the opening round if they get through the.
Both. So this is funny. Vandy and Wichita State, 2 teams people are like, I don't know if they should be in. Both those teams could beat Arizona, I think. Arizona has been very blah all year to me. They haven't really impressed me. Both those teams got great backcourts, and again, that matters a lot in the early rounds of the tournament.
Excellent. All right, we are now joined by Providence head coach Ed Cooley. We were talking about star power. Providence is a team with star power. Coach Cooley, how do you feel right now, and what is your reaction to now playing the Trojans in the opening round?
Well, guys, really excited, and I appreciate you having us on. Really excited about being selected into the field. Great matchup for us. Coach Enfield's done a great job. Just the initial reaction. Pac-12 got a lot of love from the committee.
Yes, they did. He's right, man.
I feel the Big East didn't get as much love. So, everybody's 0-0 in this. Everybody's going to have to play their best in order to advance.
Who do you think, a lot of it has been made, Coach, about Chris Dunn. He's a great point guard. Ben Bentil's had a great season. Outside of those 2 players that get all the attention, who do you think needs to step up on your roster to advance in this tournament?
The coach.
Okay.
How so?
I got to do it. I just got to do a better job. We've been in the tournament 2 years now, and I think I've matured a little bit. So I think it starts with the leadership, and that's me. I'll put all the onus on me. Then secondly, the players that got to step up are the ones that have been in that game before. Kyron Cartwright played last year. Jalen Lindsey played in this game last year. Junior Lamamba. But one of the X factors in this game could be either Ryan Fazekas or Rodney Bullock.
Coach, when you look at the team as it's presently constituted, where are you happy with your execution on the court, and where are you going to hammer the team this week in practice for improvement for an obviously very talented USC team?
Composure. When we played our last game against Villanova, I thought we weren't as composed as we needed to be in the tighter times. And again, and that's one thing. And the second thing we talk about is our transition defense, and not turning the ball over. You can't give up easy baskets against transition offensive teams. You want to make them work for everything that they get.
Excellent. And what do you know about this USC team? Obviously, you mentioned Coach Enfield and the success that he's had in the tournament at a previous stop. But what do you know just off the top of your head about how this USC team plays?
Tempo, their speed, their team speed, play with 2-point guards. They got great balance shooting the ball. 6 guys average double figures. No one averages more than 14 points a game. So, they share the ball. They move the ball. They're ultra quick in transition. We'll take quick shots. We just got to make sure we lock in and stay attention to details on their shooters. I mean, they all shoot the ball really, really well. So it's a tough game, a tough matchup for us.
Coach Cooley, thank you very much for your time, and good luck to the Friars.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right. I like Providence. You have that point guard. You don't love him as much?
I'm down on him.
Why are you down on him?
I think people figured him out. I think people realized early in the season when they're playing well.
Right.
Chris Dunn's a great player. He's going to be an unbelievable pro.
Yes.
But he is a pass-first guy in his heart. And that's not to say he can't take a game over, but I don't think he really thinks like that on the court.
Okay.
And the other guys around him have kind of struggled to make shots as the season's gone along. Bentel's a great player, great guy, but I just don't see it with him. They need someone else to step up, and it's like, we're 4 or 5 months in the season, and it just hasn't happened yet. So, yeah, they could probably get past USC, but, advancing and upsetting UNC, presumably, I just don't see it happening.
Probably not going to happen. Let's go to the Midwest region, which, Virginia atop. Michigan State as the 2.
Again.
Will they meet again? Michigan State, of course, has beaten the Cavs, the Who's, the past 2 seasons in the tournament. So, is this a region of death? Is it doable? Is it workable for Virginia? How do you feel about the Midwest?
I'm upset they're in the same region. I love both these teams. I was thinking, I was telling my buddies when I was coming out here that I felt like there's no certainty in the tournament ever, and this season is uncertain in general, but I really, really liked what Michigan State and Virginia were doing. I felt like if you really had to put 2 teams in the Final Four, they would be them. That can't happen anymore because they're not in the same region. They played each other the last 2 years in the tournament. Michigan State has won both of them. I don't know. I'm torn. I think I got to go with Michigan State.
How does this Michigan State team compare to Spartans of the past couple of seasons? A lot of people very high. They win the Big Ten tournament. They come in. Denzel Valentine's looking like a player of the year nationally. Do they compare favorably to really good Michigan State teams we've seen recently?
They do in the sense that they all buy in together. The best Michigan State teams buy into Izzo, and Izzo is that kind of coach that rags on his best players, and he calls out Denzel Valentine so much in public. Talks about how he's got to play better. If he's playing at an A, you got to play at an A+ if you want to be a player of the year and if you want us to win the national championship. And that's been the thing that he's been nudging him all year. I really like this team. When you watch them play, you got to keep watching them play, and you really fall in love with what they do. They hustle so much, but they got really good shooters. Bryn Forbes is the most slept-on player in the country. He's lights out. He does not miss when he's open.
Fair enough. Let's go back to the top of the bracket, though, because we are joined by Jay Pierce from our excellent Virginia community, Streaking the Lawn. Jay, first question is simply, how about them Who's? How about them?
How about them, indeed. Yeah, I mean, would have loved to get the win in the conference tournament, but I think everybody's very excited to see them still secure a 1 seed. And then, looking at the bracket, it's pretty favorable until you look at the Michigan State classic third year in a row matchup. I think we all expected it to happen, though.
Where are you feeling good about the Who's right now? Of course, Justin Anderson comes into the tournament last season injured but plays. He's off to the NBA. But this team is not built all that differently, does not play all that differently, which under a Tony Bennett team they shouldn't. But what are they doing particularly well right now going into the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely playing that type of defense that we want to see at the right time, certainly getting after it on that end, as you would expect from Bennett. But this team is a little bit better in offensive efficiency, more noticeably so than the previous 2 years. So I think the fact that if they keep that up how they've been doing, that they can be an offensive threat, and even when the defense lags a little bit, they can carry it by scoring some points. It's something, however, that didn't really come in their favor in the UNC championship game this weekend. They were a little bit cold in shooting. So hopefully they get back to what they've been doing this year, which is actually scoring really effectively.
Jay, why Virginia this year versus the last few years when they've lost to Michigan State? Whether or not they have to play the Spartans this year or not, but there's something about this team, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this team has more experience in being the big dog, and having a target on its back. We saw it in the regular season that they actually dropped a few conference games against decent teams, but certainly not top-tier ACC teams on the road. And so they've had some losses. They've had, some struggles, and they're healthy. They don't have injuries to their star players like Anderson last year and such. So they've got a lot of different scoring options that they've relied on. If Brogdon goes cold, you hope Gill or Paranes can pick it up. Like I said, that unfortunately didn't happen this weekend, but I am confident that because they have that offensive efficiency, that they'll be able to do it.
Short of going cold, what do you think? What kind of team do you think is built to beat Virginia, perhaps other than Michigan State, as we look at the top of the Midwest region? Texas Tech, Butler, Purdue, Little Rock, Iowa State, and Iona. Do any of those teams look to be a team that could give Virginia trouble?
Right away, I would say Purdue sticks out to me if that's a matchup down the road, just because, they sort of play that Michigan State type of ball. And I just like the talent that the Boilermakers have more than, say, Iowa State. I don't know, UVA usually struggles against teams that get really hot from outside. I think the pack line the defense that UVA plays can be susceptible to a team making open three-pointers. And that tends to be what happens in our losses this year, at least, is teams shoot very well from outside. Teams with a really skilled point guard, a really quick point guard, who can get in the lane, who can get past the collapsing line, that can give them issues too. But of that top half of the Midwest, I would say Purdue probably worries me the most.
Jay, thank you very much for your time. Go Hoos.
Thanks, Jay.
I always liked Charlottesville. Charlottesville's a great
I've never
place.
been there.
Have you not been there?
I know people from there. I've heard great things.
Good food, real nice campus.
Probably really
nice
people. Right?
Nice people.
Yeah.
It gets humid in the summer. You can see by my hair.
Yeah.
Not a fan of the humidity, people. Not a fan of the humidity. But yeah, with that, Virginia's in a good place. Virginia is... They know what they are. You talk about identity with a couple of other teams. Virginia knows what they can and can't do. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about this team as compared?
I think this is their best team. I think they're better offensively, but they still play slow. A lot of teams kind of forget, just because you score in the 50s doesn't mean you're a bad offensive team.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to talk about North Carolina too much right now. We're in the other region. But
right.
They beat Virginia at their own game last night. It was really impressive. You would think that a team like North Carolina, if they're going to beat Virginia, would try and run it up.
Right.
Even when they lose, they still get to dictate the pace. So they always get what they want in a game, Virginia.
Yes.
And so it comes down, I think at that point, a matter of making shots. And there are a good shooting team. So I think that's why you have to pencil them into the Elite Eight and then see what happens if they get to Michigan State in that round.
We hadn't talked about the region when we talked about stars, but Iowa State has, at times, a legitimate star in Jordan Niang. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the Clones at this moment? Another team that's just sort of all over the place.
He's a star. He's a great player. He's had a great career. But remember, they lost in the first round last year to, I think,
immediately
UAB. It was like the second game of the day. No one was paying attention.
Right.
You just assumed they would win that game, and they didn't win. It was like, I don't even know what just happened. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to happen again this year. I think that's going to be a high-scoring game. Take the over if you're a betting man. But they're going to win a game. I mean, they still got a great team. Right. I think that they're just still not defensively sound enough to be able to play a more disciplined, be able to beat a more disciplined team like a Virginia.
A team that also seems to have an identity, even though that identity in the Pac-12 championship game was getting blown out eventually because Oregon ran all over them. But Utah has a really nice inside-out game because they have good size. Do you like the Utes at all at this point?
I think they're a little, again, as Coach Ed Cooley was saying, the Pac-12 got a lot of love. I don't think they're a 3 seed.
Okay.
I really like Seton Hall. I'm probably recency bias.
Sure.
Based on what they did at MSG this weekend, but I think that's a team that would give Utah problems. Now, that being said, Utah has maybe the best big man in the tournament who's going to be a pro.
Good.
Jakob Poeltl's great, but big men, you got to give him the ball. It's not like you're a guard and you can dictate when you get the ball and when you shoot and when you score. You got to dump it into him. At the beginning of the season, they didn't give him the ball enough, and I think Coach K, Larry Kostoliak, was like, hey, point guard, you're not our best player. The big guy down low is our best player. I think they're good. They had a good season, but I'm not as sold on them as other teams, as other people may be. I really am in on Seton Hall. I got to go with them.
All right, you feeling Michigan State, you feeling Virginia at the end, or somebody else?
I'm feeling those two. I think it's chalk from those two guys.
Right.
I think Seton Hall, Michigan State will be an interesting game, contrasting styles.
Sure. What do you like about Seton Hall, other than obviously the recent success? What is it about the Seton Hall team that makes sense?
They're super athletic and they can score. I mean, Isaiah Whitehead's probably going to go pro after this year. I think a lot of people forget Seton Hall's been pretty bad for a while.
Right.
The guys that are carrying this team are all sophomores. Most of them are top 100 recruits. This was kind of supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that it just they kind of fell apart last season, and then this season they didn't start off so well. But this is actually what if you're a basketball insider, you kind of expect this out of Seton Hall. They play so hard, so fast, and they were shooting the ball so well at the Big East tournament. You're not sure if that can keep up.
Right.
You wonder if shot selection will become a problem, thinking that it's always going to go in. But at the same time, if they can force turnovers and get baskets in transition, they're really tough to beat.
Excellent. And with that, we're going to go back to the social studio where I'm told Ryan and Roger are joined by Ben Simmons. Is that true?
Ben Simmons actually just left. He
No!
really wanted to meet you guys, but he has a lot of. I think he's going to do photography for the NIT since LSU's not playing in that either. So we, it's the internet. We get a lot of hate and ask questions, and that's fine because we're all haters. The first question I want to throw out at you guys: who's the first number 1 seed that's going to get upset in the tournament this year?
Oh, man.
All right, so we have North Carolina, Virginia, Oregon, and Kansas.
Hate.
Kansas.
What?
Wow.
I mean, it's just because they normally are the team that gets upset.
Bucknell, Bill Self, yeah.
But then I'm like, the bracket's not that tough. I mean, I guess, I don't know. All these 4. What if it's all number 1 seeds? It might actually happen.
Who do you like, Raj?
Oh, I was just saying I like Kansas. I think they're deep. I think that they're the type of team that can, make it pretty far in this tournament.
We had one comment from somebody who said that Florida Gulf Coast was going to be the first 16 seed to beat a 1 seed over North Carolina. Just imagine what that would do to North Carolina fans as a group, and more importantly for Duke fans. I don't think our country is already pretty divided right now. I don't think that it can take that kind of rift. Here's one more question I want to throw out at you guys. On the topic of North Carolina, if they play like they did in the ACC tournament, who's stopping them?
Good question. So if the ACC tournament didn't exist, I would say if Indiana can get to the Sweet 16 and play North Carolina, they can very easily knock them off.
Right.
But all of a sudden they're playing terrific defense. So then I think it comes down to West Virginia that will just speed them up and then force those turnovers. Again, you can't replicate that. I think West Virginia is the toughest draw really for anyone in that bracket. So of course, by default, it's the toughest draw for North Carolina, assuming it gets that far. Still a little, high on Indiana in the sense that, the defense, you can play good defense for 3 games, but can you play good defense for 3 weeks,
Fair enough. All right. And with that, we are now joined by head coach for the Purdue Boilermakers, Matt Painter. How are you doing? How are you feeling tonight, finding out what your potential path could look like?
Well, we're really excited. Obviously, it's tough when you battle somebody like Michigan State and you put yourself in a position down the stretch to win the game and you don't. And so it's pretty tough for the coaches and the players to now kind of regroup a little bit and realize that, we've put ourselves in a great position as a 5 seed going to Denver. And we know Arkansas Little Rock's going to be tough. And I always say you don't slip on a banana peel and get in the NCAA tournament. Everybody's good. They've won 29 games. And so we're just getting back right now on the bus. So we're going to head in there and watch a bunch of film and get ready for practice tomorrow.
Coach, obviously not the greatest days because of the Big Ten championship game, but how do you feel about your team in a positive way? What do you feel like the Boilers are doing well at the moment?
Well, we've played well offensively. We really shot the ball well today. We didn't shoot the ball as well, but I think that had a lot to do with Michigan State and their ability to defend and rebound. But here the past 3 weeks, we've really shot the ball well. We've moved it well. We've been pretty efficient on the offensive end, and then that's helped us. It's a big thing for us because we have such size that keeps us out of transition. It allows us to set our defense. And so I've been really pleased with our effort, especially today. I thought we didn't execute great. We weren't able to finish down the stretch, but we really played hard and we had a good fight to us.
Coach, what do you know about Little Rock as a program, as a team? What are you going to look for when you look at the tape?
You know what? I don't really know. I know their coach, Chris Boucher. He was an assistant for Coach Knight at Texas Tech for many years. He was a junior college coach, and his teams are always well prepared and played hard. And so, but that's the extent of it. I have not seen Little Rock play this year, so That's what we're getting ready to do here in about 30 minutes. And, for us, it's at this point, you got to know what they're doing. You got to be hooked up. You got to watch a lot of tape. But then you also got to, make sure that you take care of your own business and do the things necessary to win games no matter who you're playing.
And as you prepare, where do you see the biggest area for improvement heading into the tournament for the Boilers?
I would say execution, like I just mentioned. I would, at times we get away from some of the things that help us at the time and just doing little things, taking care of the basketball. Today we did a really good job of taking care of the basketball. I don't know if our shot selection was great at times, but I would say those things are the best areas for us. When we've dipped, when we've had our losses, it's been turnovers. So a little bit there on the offensive end, and then containing the dribble. We've done a better job of keeping the ball in front of us. I know Little Rock's got some athletes, and it's going to be important for us to keep them in front of us.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck this week.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you. All right.
All right, and with that, if you have just tuned in recently, you've noticed there's some beautiful food right here in front of us. So
we haven't touched it yet.
We have not touched it yet, but SB Nation's Selection Sunday Live is brought to you by Applebee's. Boom. We've got the quesadilla burger. Limited time. I'm told limited time for the 2 for $20. A lot of fan favorites on that menu. 2 entrees and 1 app for just, you guessed it, $20. But here's where I cannot stress it enough. Check with your local Applebee's because price and participation, just like everything
it's
in life.
It's a franchise, right? Sometimes they change the rules from state to state.
It may vary. Yeah. It may vary, so just do your homework as it relates to that delicious-looking quesadilla burger.
My first date, I was 14 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I went to Applebee's.
And it was delicious.
That was great. I don't remember what I ate, but I remember feeling full and happy. I never went back there with another girl again. That'd be weird. But
right, sure. That holds a special place in your heart.
Special connection.
All right, let's go to the West. The best region, as it were, to me. Oregon at number 1, Oklahoma at number 2. Star power, of course, for the Sooners with Buddy Hield. As you look up and down the West, what jumps out to you?
What jumps out to me? Watching Texas A&M today, I think that
they're so good.
They're really good. They got guys at every position that can hurt you. Daniel House is the guy that can get to the rim and also score. He can shoot. He's like a Buddy Hield light kind of player, but he's even a little bit more physical. I don't think his pro career is going to be as illustrious as what Buddy's ceiling is. But I think that this is kind of an easy bracket for Oregon. People will probably say they were the 4th 1 seed. So who's the 1 seed that's going to lose first? People would raise their hand and say Oregon.
Right.
But then when I look at their draw, I do think St. Joe's is playing well. Cincinnati doesn't scare me one bit. St. Joe's is playing well. Baylor is a little undisciplined. You never really know what you're going to get out of them.
And the Ducks did beat Baylor early on in the season.
That's already happened. They already took care of them. Duke is Duke. We've probably watched every game because you can't not watch Duke play basketball on TV.
What's wrong with the Blue Devils?
They have nothing inside, like absolutely nothing inside. What makes them great is a little bit different than what could make them great is what they're not really used to, which is getting to the basket and more dribble penetration and isolation.
Right.
Brandon Ingram and Grayson Allen can go to the basket themselves, and normally they're a drive and dish type team, and that's not really who they are this year. So that's kind of like an identity crisis, plus the fact that they just really have no one up front.
They're small,
Chase Jeter's probably going to get out-recruited. He was a big-time freshman coming in, and he doesn't even play. He doesn't even know what he's doing. So it's really up to that final Plumlee brother. This is the last year of the Plumlees.
Is that the end of the line?
This is the last year.
Okay, good.
So I think it's, 12 years now?
It was 12 years of Plumlees.
Yeah. So they're thin up front, and they're never really a great defensive team. And this year more so than others. It's just a different type of Duke team that doesn't have as much talent. You know? And that's just the way of the world sometimes when your freshman class isn't as spectacular as it is in other years. So
I love hearing that as a fan of the 1 seed in the region. Oklahoma at 2. We talked about Buddy Hield and his enormous ceiling and his ability, perhaps more than anybody else in the tournament outside of Denzel Valentine, to take over a game and to drop 40 in college, which is nuts.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Oklahoma coming out of the Big 12?
I love them. I've loved them like every year I've come on and done the show. Like Oklahoma's been a little bit better.
A little more.
And like this is the year. And watch Oklahoma play. Like he ISOs guys and like draws fouls and like plays with defenders like you'd see Kobe Bryant do it in the NBA. And you don't see that in college basketball very often. Like his coach Lon Kruger can give him the ball and say, at least get to the basket and get a foul called on. And like that doesn't happen very often. There's not a lot of guys that are that talented to consistently do that. He can get whatever shot he wants. So I think that alone helps them. And I think that their backcourt's pretty good. Cousins and Woodard have been kind of off and on the last month or so, but they're good ball handlers, they're athletic, and they played together for 3 years. So if this is the year they're going to do it, if there's going to be a year they're going to do it, this is the year.
Right.
I like them, but I'm really falling in love with Texas A&M. I think that they're balanced across the board. They got a great point guard. They got great scores on the wings. Their transfers, it's kind of fortuitous. They got 3 or 4 transfers that have come in over the last few years, and they've all really meshed well together. They didn't even beat Kentucky today. Or no, they did beat Kentucky. I forgot about that.
Yep.
They look great. I mean, I think that they're playing their best basketball right now. They lost 5 or 6 games in a row about a month ago, and it's just kind of weird. But now I'm like,
a lot of these good teams seem like they have blips.
Yeah.
They seem like they have these blips. And if you're going to talk Oklahoma, if you're going to talk Texas A&M, how do you not talk about Texas? A team with a coach who has gone far in the tournament, who perhaps at times looked ahead of schedule this season with what Shaka Smart eventually should be able to do with recruiting and going deep into the tournament. Do you like the Longhorns at all?
Not yet. I like them. I really was in on them a few weeks ago, but then they just, again, they weren't getting that consistency that I was looking for.
Right.
What Shaka is doing is pretty impressive. I mean, he's got to be a coach of the year in the conversation. He's not going to win it. These are not his players.
Right.
I mean, no knock on Rick Barnes, but he didn't recruit these guys.
You can knock Rick Barnes.
I like Rick Barnes. He's a nice guy.
Okay.
No, I know. But Isaiah Taylor is having a great year.
Yes.
And that's Shaka implementing his system and letting them run and play more, and that just fits Taylor's game better. That, again, I like Northern Iowa based on the fact that they've done this before. They've made a deep run. They have a good team this year. I think that they get the best of Texas, but again, Texas in 2 or 3 years, look out. Once Shaka can start getting high-level players that are athletic and fit his system, it's like a whole different ballgame for him.
All right, fair enough. Back to that 1-seed America's team, the Oregon Ducks. We have Sean Larson on from the excellently named Addicted to Quack, the Oregon SB Nation community. Sean, what was your reaction to seeing the Ducks as a 1-seed?
I was honestly kind of surprised. I had been kind of clinging on to the hope that they might get that 1 seed, but when I saw Michigan State win their game, I was like, all right, they got the 1 seed, we'll take the 2 seed, and that'll work. So I was really surprised. It was a pleasant surprise, and obviously pretty excited about it.
Oregon comes into the tournament with perhaps as much momentum as any team in the country. Were you expecting the Ducks to close out the season in the fashion that they did with a terrific Pac-12 tournament ending with them trouncing the Utes?
Yeah, they had a real strong finish. I think when they lost back-to-back games at Cal and at Stanford, which was always a tough trip for them, that was a real turning point for them in the season. It was a moment where they could kind of take a step back. They had been on a hot streak before then, and they really didn't let those losses get to them. And I think they used that as fuel for motivation, and they just rattled off a bunch of quality wins and stormed through that tournament. I don't think anyone was expecting the result that they had against Utah. I mean, they matched up well against them. That was their 7th straight win against the Utes, but.
Right.
I mean, in that fashion and that kind of blowout, that was a statement win right there. And I think if they had won that game by single digits, I think we'd be looking at the Ducks as a 2 seed. I think that that blowout win is what got them that 1 seed.
And for those unfamiliar with Oregon basketball, both because it has been recently a football school and, by the way, track and field indoor champion.
Congratulations.
For those unfamiliar because of whatever late tip-off times or cable alignments, what do you feel is the identity of this Oregon team heading into the tournament?
I think that the identity of this team, the name of the game for them, and what I've kind of said all year is it's a real balanced attack. They have, for really their whole starting lineup, guys like Chris Boucher, Dillon Brooks, Elgin Cook, guys like those. Anyone can show up on any given night. Dillon Brooks is usually the guy who leads the way with the scoring attack, but a couple of the Pac-12 tournament games, they had, 3-4 of their starters scoring 15, 20 points. So it's a real balanced attack. And in years past, when the brief Joe Young era that the Ducks had, if he went cold, then the Ducks were really in trouble because they didn't have really anyone else to turn to. But the team has such depth this year, and they've really found their rhythm with using the same starting lineup night in and night out. So I think it's consistency with that starting lineup and being able to have that balanced attack of if one guy goes cold, they can turn to someone else. And it's a real athletic group of guys. I think it's the best team that they've ever had.
Excellent. Sean, thank you very much for your time, and good luck to your and my Ducks.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. Oregon's in as a 1. I like Oregon a lot. I don't know how much. I mean, you're out west, so you have the opportunity to watch them more than most.
I do.
What are you feeling about this team? Are they deep enough?
I think he brings up a good point.
Enough?
They are deep enough. And the Joe Young era was great. He was a great scorer, but they stood around or they didn't know what to do if he wasn't on.
Right.
They have a lot of options on this team, and they are super athletic. They're really efficient on offense. They're a little weak on defending the three-pointer, so I could see a team that gets hot. They kind of, they let that happen. But they're legit. I mean, they are worthy of being a number 1 seed, and I'm sure people out there right now are saying that they're not, but I absolutely agree that they are seeded correctly, and they can make a very deep run.
Anybody else in this region? You mentioned Northern Iowa as a team that you really liked, both because of their history and the way that they play. What is it about the Panthers that you like, that you look forward to?
That I look forward to? The fact they've done it before.
Yeah.
The fact that they beat Iowa State this year. The fact that they beat North Carolina. Now, granted, North Carolina didn't have Marcus Page.
Right.
But at the same time, this team has done it this season and in the past. They have the same coach. Ben Jacobson's a great coach. They're not going to be nervous. They know what to do in this sort of situation. And I think the matchups, at least in the early rounds, suit them well.
Excellent. All right. And with that, we have somebody that came to our studio, told me himself he liked the Oregon Ducks way before they were a 1 seed. And because we talk about how open the tournament is, we had ESPN's bracketologist Joe Lunardi break down the types of teams and the types of situations he likes in a wide open tournament. I want to call you a doctor of bracketology. I don't know if such a degree exists.
If it did, I'd have to think I'd be pretty close to it by now.
Is there something that rubs you the wrong way about these top teams sometimes?
If there's one thing that I always look up, it's how did the team do in non-home games?
Okay.
You don't play any home games in the tournament. You can be, 20-2 at home and have gone, 2-7 in your league on the road. Now, granted, it could all be against ranked teams.
Right.
But 2-7's 2-7, and you should at least kind of go, what am I missing here? I genuinely see this year as having absolutely no elite teams.
Okay.
Like, there's not one. It doesn't mean that this year's bad. It just means it's different.
It's more wide open.
Last year was staggeringly good.
Right.
Last year's 1 seeds were the second best group of 1 seeds in the 64-team era.
Okay.
They were exceeded only by 2008 when, interestingly enough, was the only time that all 4 number 1 seeds went to the Final Four. It's only happened 1 time in 30-plus years. If I told you that and then said that none of this year's projected ones were of the level of last year's, they're more like 2s and 3s, would that make you want to circle them more or less on your bracket sheet? I'm thinking less. If the ones won all the time, we'd stop watching.
This is very true. Joe Lunardi, ESPN's bracketologist, thank you very much for your time.
You bet.
That host was great looking.
That
interviewer?
He reminded me of someone.
Keep your eye on him.
Yeah, he's going places.
Let's do final picks. Let's go Sweet 16, Elite 8. Who is jumping? You love West Virginia. Can I pencil them in?
Where are we starting?
Let's start with the East.
Okay. UNC is going to play Indiana.
Okay.
It's going to happen. So Kentucky, tell me how much you hate me. Go for it.
Sure.
Notre Dame is not going to beat. They're not going very far.
Okay.
I think West Virginia is going to win that region.
All right.
So I think you take West Virginia to go to the Final Four. Unfortunately,
over North Carolina.
Over Xavier too. I can't believe I did that.
Oh man.
But West Virginia is tough. They're built for the tournament. You guys. So just remember that.
Correct.
I'm going to go with Michigan State because I think they're the best team in the nation right now.
Okay.
And Virginia may be the second or third, but they're in the same region, so that just can't happen.
Fair.
I do like Seton Hall to advance to Sweet 16.
Okay.
I like Purdue to do what they need to do. That's an interesting game against Arkansas Little Rock.
Very much so.
Little Rock has the pieces for an upset based on how they play, but I really like what Purdue's been doing lately.
Okay.
So I'll go Virginia, Michigan State in the Elite 8, but don't count out Purdue.
Okay.
We're going west.
Let's go west.
It's like you want to hate Oregon, but just looking at this draw, they got a good draw. So I'm going to put them in the Elite 8 over against Texas A&M, and I'm going Texas A&M
to come out of the region.
That's my pick.
So you have Oregon over Duke then?
I do. Duke's.
I'll take it.
Duke sucks.
We're going A&M, and then in the South.
South, I'm gonna go Kansas just because I think again they kind of got a pretty good draw too here.
Right.
It'd be great if we could get a whole different Maryland team. I have no idea. It probably won't happen, but again, Maryland was a top 5 preseason team, and they allegedly have a lot of talent. So you can't count them out, but I am going to go with Kansas just based on the fact that, as Roger said, they are deep and don't really have any flaws and seem to do just fine playing with anyone in the country.
I like these picks. A 1, 2 3s, and a 2.
I know, it's good. Normally I kind of
That's nice.
I got 3 1s and a 2, but no, this is a little bit different this year. So
fair enough.
Maybe I'm finally right on something.
His name is Nick Fasulo. You saw the social studio with Roger and Ryan. My name is Dan, and I do need to give the people just one more friendly, delicious reminder. And that reminder is the SB Nation Selection Sunday live show is brought to you by Applebee's. Stop by, get that quesadilla burger. Bourbon Street chicken and shrimp. It's a great classic combo. What are we talking about here?
It's a good idea.
We've got wonton tacos, which look light, but at the same time, very delicious.
Filling.
Yeah, it looks like a great option. And then, once again, these are all on the fan favorite 2 for $20 menu. You can't go wrong. 2 apps and an entree, or 1 app, and 2 entrees. Still a great deal for $20. Only at Applebee's. Check out your local Applebee's because, as always, price and participation. What, Nick?
May vary.
They may vary. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the tournament. Fill out those brackets. Let's all get some bunch of upsets correct. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.